today, I want to talk to you about third-party tools. Now, when I first got involved in network marketing, I didn't understand what the value of third-party tool. My impression was that if you got involved, you had to learn all the facts, become an expert, and then give those facts to people. And if you were really highly skilled, then they'd say yes, and you could build a business. And so that's what I tried to do when I was 23 years old. I went out to the world and said, hey, let me tell you all about my business. And I got absolutely destroyed by friends and family and everybody else asking me questions I didn't know how to answer, or talking to me about, well, how much money are you making? And how much experience do you have? And how much knowledge do you have? And what can you do for me? And I was just like lost, because I was using first party, okay? And generally, if you look at it like this, let's say on an influence scale, there's 10 all the way down to 1. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, I don't believe in God's eyes anybody's a 10 or anybody's a 1, but in society's eyes, or in your relationships with somebody, wherever you find yourself on this list, there's somebody above you in influence, in respect, in reputation, in whatever success, and there's people below you in reputation, respect, whatever, success. So let's just say you're a 7. If you use first party, in other words, here's the facts, you need to join me. Can you go to the 8s, 9s, and 10s? Will they even be able to hear you? The answer is no. They're not going to be able to hear you. They're like, look. You're kind of smaller influence than me. Don't come to me and tell me about how amazing and smart and intelligent you are. But so here's what you end up doing. You go to the 6s and 5s and 4s, the people who look up to you, right? And let's say you sponsor somebody who's a 5. Who can they talk to if it's first party? They can't talk to the 6s, 7s, 8s, 9s, and 10s. They can. If they have to be the fact giver, they can only talk to the 4s, 3s, 2s, and 1s. So let's say that they sponsor somebody who's a 3. Who can they talk to using first party? They can't talk to this group because that group's not going to respect them and listen to them. All they have left to is talking to 2s and 1s. And pretty soon, all you have people to talk to are the unemployed, the ones who can't afford to join your business, the ones who won't stay. You know what I mean? The bottom of the socioeconomic influence ladder. That's all you have to be able to talk to. So if you start here or even here and you use first party, let's say you're a 10. You're a 10. Boom. I'm a 10. Come join me. Like me, I'm actually a 10. Eric Worre is actually a 10 as far as network marketing influence. So do you think using direct approach, come join me, don't be stupid. Okay? Now, I'm not in the field and I'm not in a company, but if I was, I said, come join me. Well, I could get all the 9s, 8s, 7s, 6s, 5s, 4s, 3s, 2s, and 1s and say, well, shoot, he's making a lot of money. If I can get close to him, I can make some money too if I use first party. So let's say I bring in an 8. 8 can't talk to the 9s and 10s, and then those people bring in the 6s, and they can't talk to this group. They can only talk to this group, and pretty soon we have a majority of people down here if I use first party techniques. Here's my wisdom. Here's my words. Here's my skill. Here's my understanding. Here's my results. Here's my check. Right? Come join me. So here's you, and here's a prospect. If you go to that prospect, first party, and say, come join me, let me give you the facts, let me give you the information, let me give you the knowledge, let me give you the story, that person's going to look back at you and say one of two things, typically. One of two things. One is, if you're a 10 and they're a 7, they're going to be intimidated by you because you're too successful. I can't do what you do. Congratulations, Eric, on your success. Congratulations. I'm sure you're going to do well, but I can't see myself doing what you do because I don't have that kind of skill. Or 2, they're going to say, I'm more influential than you. You're a 7 and I'm a 9. Why should I listen to you? And they're going to start throwing you lots of objections and what in the world? Why are you talking to me about this? Right? So it's a really difficult way to be able to grow a network marketing business is first party. And I learned this the hard way. When I went out to talk to successful people, my dad's friends, my parents' friends, people who went to church, I was here. I had 18 jobs before I was 23 years old. I was here. Who could I talk to? Ones? So people join and quit in 2 seconds? I couldn't even talk to these people. So I figured out third party just by accident. And the accident was this. I just said, hey, I figured out this concept called a third party, somebody that's not you. And here's what I learned to do. The first third party that I used was my upline. I went to a prospect and I introduced them to my upline. And the upline gave the prospects the information. And if they would respect the third party more than they respect me. So I could go to, as a 2, I could go to an 8 and say, I want to introduce you to my upline. They're successful people. They have all the knowledge, wisdom, information, success, history, resume. They can answer things better than I could. And if that person liked what they heard from my third party, then I would be able to sponsor them. So what I did, I was just dragging people in front of my upline constantly. We have breakfast with this person. We have lunch with this person. All I did was connect those people to a third party. That's all I did. And I got some results. That worked for me. And then I found out there was local meetings. Local opportunity presentations at the Sheraton or the Hyatt or whatever. Now, those have turned into like, today, local meetings are like Zoom calls or Facebook Lives or those types of things, but whatever, different form. And I went to my first meeting and I was just like, oh my gosh. If I just go bring some 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10s to this meeting, somebody else will do the presentation. All I have to be good at is connecting my prospect to that third party, which in this case was a meeting or a Zoom call. You know, a modern version would be like a Zoom call. So I introduced the prospect to the third party, and if they like what they saw, they could ask more questions of people like my upline or the successful people who were doing the presentation. All I had to do was guide. I was a tour guide. Introduce my prospect to whatever third party. Third party would give the information. They'd have back and forth. And if the third party ever came over to me and said, well, what do you think? Then I would point right quickly to something in my upline, and I started to get results. And I was like, wow. And then the company came out with a video. And this is in the VHS video days, okay? The company came out with a video. And that became one of my most powerful third-party tools. See, when the meeting wasn't happening, I could have my own meeting by using that video. And I learned to introduce the prospect to that video. The video gave the information. Then if the prospect had questions, then I would introduce them to my upline. And if they still wanted to learn more, then I would bring the prospect to a meeting. Okay? And I didn't have to be very skilled. All I had to do was learn how to introduce anyone to a third party, let the third party do the work for me. Okay? So let me give you the short version of what a third party is, and then I'll give you the long version. Well, I'll give you the long version first. So it could be video, it could be audio, it could be the product, it could be a story. It could be a website. It could be some awards. It could be printed material. It could be positive press, PR. Could be any number of things, all kinds of stuff. Here's a short version of what third party is. Anything that's not you. This third party is anything that's not you. When it comes to giving facts, giving information, transferring information. Your job is to introduce the prospect to something like this and keep the prospect engaged with this stuff, and then your influence doesn't matter. If you're a 10 on a scale of 1 to 10, it might seem weird to use third party when you are so powerful and so cool. But here's the trap. If you just go first party, you eliminate all this stuff, and because you're so powerful, so cool, you're going to have a very short career, because you're going to get 9s, who get 8s, who get 6s, who get 4s, who get 3s, who get 2s, and then it's over, and you say, well, I have no duplication, this thing doesn't work. This thing created duplication for me. This turned my business into something completely different. Because now everybody on this influence ladder can prospect anybody else on this influence ladder, regardless of their background, regardless of how much their results, regardless of their experience, regardless of their resume, regardless of their prestige, regardless of their skills. How skilled do you need to be in order to be able to introduce a prospect to the product? Hey, check this out. Or to tell them a story. How skilled do you have to be to tell them a story? Or point them to a website. Here's the rule, and I'm not going to write it down, but you write it down in your notes. If your lips are moving, the rule of third party says, if your lips are moving, you need to be pointing, reading, introducing, or telling a story. If your lips are moving, pointing, reading, introducing, or telling a story. As long as you stay there, then your ability to be able to grow a big business and have duplication. Once I understood this, I started to have duplication. Once I really understood this, duplication started to be real for me. Now, at some point, guess what? You become a third party for somebody inside your team, but not for your prospects. Okay? For your prospects, you've got to, no matter how cool you are, if you're making millions a year, if you haven't made anything, for your prospects, you need to, with your prospects, use a third-party approach to be able to grow your business. Okay? But for your team's prospects, you can be the third party for them. So your team can bring a prospect to you. Your team can have a coffee with you. Your team could ask you to get on a 3-way phone call in order to be able to share the information. Your team could use you as a story for them to get results. So it's okay for you to do it for somebody else's prospect, to be the expert, to be the fact giver, but not for your own. And it's tough, because if you're an influential person, it feels like this is stupid. But it's a trap if you use first party and you don't use third party. Okay? So I want you to avoid the trap. I want you to focus on third party. Make a list of all the things that you could use in order to be able to introduce prospects to your opportunity, help them understand what it is that you have. Avoid doing it with your prospects, and encourage everybody in your team to be focused on this, right? If your lips are moving, you need to be pointing, reading, introducing, or telling a story. And a third party is anything that is not you, okay? So avoid feeling cool about all this. I use one illustration with this. Let's say this is the opportunity, this page, okay? This page is the opportunity. And if I do this, and I'm the distributor and you're the prospect, can you see the opportunity? Answer is no, you can't. You know why you can't? Because you're in the way. You're in the way. It's all about you. They're looking at you. They're not looking at the opportunity. So you need to get yourself out of the way, introduce the person, to the opportunity. And if they start looking at you and let's say they ask you a question, you have to resist the urge to say, oh, I'm so glad you asked, because now it's all about you again. And they can't see the opportunity. So you got to move out of the way. They ask a question, say, well, let's listen to this audio. Well, let me tell you this story. Well, let me introduce you to this person. Well, let me invite you to this meeting. Well, let me have you watch this video. Well, take a look at this award. Well, here's a brochure. Over here, over here, over here. Forget me. It's not about me. Just keep looking here, and don't do this. Because once you do that, you got to live with it, warts and all. And you're stuck with this strange situation where you can't get duplication, okay? So that's our message for this week. Hope you got value. Go after it. Hit it hard. Third party is your key to freedom, okay? Embrace it. See you next time.